Ranking Member Burgess, and distinguished members of the committee. I appreciate you asking Arnold Ventures to testify today. Arnold Ventures is a philanthropy dedicated to reforming dysfunctional markets and programs to assure a better return on investment. We work to develop evidence and ideas to improve public policy. We believe strongly in markets, but we also believe in evidence-based intervention when markets fail. With respect to drugs, our objective is to protect innovation, but to explicitly lower the cost for the employer, the taxpayer, and most importantly, the patient. We believe that there are strong reasons for the Congress to act. We spent $470 billion on drugs in 2016. That number is expected to grow 24% by 2020. In Medicare Part D, we spent $100 billion after rebates. That number is projected to double in the next 10 years. On Medicare Part B, we spent $30 billion. That number has doubled since 2010. In Medicaid, we spent $30 billion net. That number has increased 50% since 2011. Meanwhile, at the federal level, this is deficit financed. 3 in 10 Americans can't afford their prescriptions, and 40% of U.S. families can't produce $400 in an emergency. To that end, we urge the Congress to act comprehensively on the drug issue. Number one, to curb patent abuses and other anti-competitive behaviors so that when a drug is available as a competitor can actually get to market. Number two, remove market distortions through greater transparency and reforming price inflationary actions such as the misuse of rebates and fees and the misuse of coupons. Number three, directly address high launch prices and price increases for those drugs that do not have competitors through such actions as reference pricing, negotiation, or inflation rebates. More precisely, with respect to Medicare Part D, consistent with Medicaid MedPAC recommendations, the committee should consider a series of reforms to change the payment structure to increase pressure on the PBMs to more aggressively negotiate for lower-cost drugs. For example, by requiring the PBMs and the manufacturers to pick up substantially all of the Part D catastrophic costs. Concurrently, that policy should offer greater protections to the beneficiary when they hit the catastrophic cap. Those proposed reforms also include modifications to the copayment for the LIS, for the low-income subsidy population, in order to encourage them to use lower-cost drugs when they're available. That is the right policy direction, but those policies need to be designed very carefully to assure that they result in taxpayer savings and don't cut off access to important drugs. Where there is no competition and PBMs have no leverage over prices, we would suggest that you consider such tools as an inflation rebate, pricing to the clinical value of the drug, or a negotiation strategy. These tools would allow the Medicare program to address situations where the manufacturer has set excessive prices in the absence of competition. With respect to Part B, we would suggest moving from a percentage-based payment to a flat fee, empowering physicians to form their own purchasing groups to negotiate prices, and consider lowering the overall payment using the average sales price blended with an international price index. Turning to the public justification of price increases, there is value in that information as a policy source and as a motivation for policy action, but without additional action, that in and of itself will not curb drug prices. That said, a well-designed policy should set a minimum drug price, trigger reporting on both a percentage and an absolute dollar basis, require legal attestation of a ranking company official, and avoid disclosing proprietary information. With respect to the Sunshine Act, we recommend reporting payments made to patient groups who often act as a proxy for the manufacturers, and we would report the economic value of the samples provided to physicians. However, if that issue, if public reporting can't be reached, at a minimum, the sample values should be made available to oversight organizations and researchers. In closing, any policy that you undertake will involve a number of difficult trade-offs across stakeholders, and we know that there will be stiff resistance from the status quo. But we also know that the status quo has produced non-competitive behaviors, higher taxpayer spending, and higher prices for the patient. Arnold Ventures and its grantees stand ready to work with you on these difficult issues. I'd like to thank you for your attention. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Miller.